There's a clump in your garden that flowered in a ring this year, full around the outside, bare in the middle, like something ate the center out. Nothing's wrong with it, nothing's eating it. It has run out of room in the middle of itself, and you've got about 3 weeks to fix that. The plant next to it looks exactly the same and will die over winter if you do the same thing to it. 9 to get a spade into. 6 where doing it is the most expensive 20 minutes of your gardening year. One of the 6 is different. Get that one wrong and it isn't a lost season. The clump dies and you find out in May. I'll tell you which at the end. One rule decides every verdict today, and it isn't on your calendar. A divided plant has to grow new roots before the ground freezes. Not leaves, roots. And roots only grow while the soil is warm, which is why September works at all. The air has cooled so the plant isn't losing water through its leaves. But a foot down, the soil is still holding summer. So your deadline isn't a date on the calendar, it's at least 6 weeks before your ground freezes hard, which for most of America falls somewhere between the 10th of September and the middle of October. I'll give you your own date in a few minutes. And the second half of the rule, which is what the whole back half of this video is built on, if a plant is flowering right now, it's spending everything it has on that flower. Dig it today, and there's nothing left to make roots with. Short version, divide what is finished, leave what's still working. Number 9. Solomon's seal, divide. Start with the easiest win on the list and one of the few plants that actually tells you when it's ready. Solomon's seal, arching stems, paired leaves, little white bells hanging underneath. The thing that makes a shady corner look designed. Right now the leaves are going butter yellow, and that's the signal. The plant has finished moving everything it made this year down into the roots, and the roots are what you're after. Dig the clump. You'll find a row of fat, knuckly roots running sideways just under the surface. Rhizomes, if you want the word for them, and they lift easily because they're barely rooted down. Cut them into pieces with a sharp knife, and here's the part that matters. Each piece needs a plump growth bud on the end. That bud is next spring's stem. A piece without one is a piece of firewood. Replant them horizontally, an inch or two deep, pointing the way you want the colony to travel. Number 8. Bergenia. Divide. Go look at yours and see if it's doing the thing. Bergenia pig squeak, the one with big leathery cabbage leaves that turn burgundy in the cold. After 4 or 5 years, it creeps outward across the surface and goes bald in the middle. All the leaves end up around the outside on bare woody stems with a hole in the center where the plant used to be. That's not a disease. That's what it does, and it's the whole reason to divide it. Lift the clump and look. You'll see lengths of rhizome lying on the soil, some with a rosette of leaves on the end and some without. Keep the ones with leaves, cut them off with 3 or 4 inches of rhizome attached, and compost the bare old sections. Replant shallow. The rhizome sits right at the surface, not buried. This is the one where people go wrong. Bury a Bergenia rhizome and it rots. Now the payoff, which is why September rather than spring. Do this now and the fresh divisions have 6 weeks to root, and then those leathery leaves turn burgundy and stay on the plant all winter. You get color out of this thing in January, when nothing else in the bed is doing anything at all. Number 7. Bleeding heart. Divide. The reason most people never divide a bleeding heart is simple. By now, they can't find it. Dicentra spectabilis, the old-fashioned one, arching stems hung with pink lockets in May, goes completely dormant by midsummer. The foliage yellows, collapses, and vanishes, and by September, there is nothing above ground to tell you where it is, which is exactly why this is the right time and exactly why nobody does it. So the first instruction is for next year. When it starts to yellow in July, push a stake in beside it. That's it. That's the whole trick. And it's the difference between dividing this plant confidently and digging blind. If you know where yours is, dig wide and deep. The roots run further down than you expect. What comes up looks like a handful of pale, brittle carrots. Hands from here, not the spade. Break the root mass apart so that every piece has at least one pinkish bud on it. Those buds are already formed and they're easy to see once the soil is off. A piece with no bud will never grow. Replant at the same depth, water it in, and then forget about it until May, because nothing is going to happen above ground until then. That's normal. Don't dig it back up to check. Quick word before number 6. For anybody who wants all of this written down, I put it together in a book at henrysgardensecrets.com. It's called The Low Maintenance Garden Blueprint. I won't bring it up again. If you want it, it's there. Now, number 6. Brunnera and lungwort. Divide. Two plants, one job, because they behave the same way and they're usually growing about 4 feet from each other. Brunnera, big heart-shaped leaves, little blue forget-me-not flowers in April. And lungwort with the spotted leaves. Both go into dry shade when people have run out of ideas, and both quietly fall apart after 4 or 5 years. The middle thins and the whole thing sprawls sideways instead of sitting up. They're easy. Dig the clump, shake the soil off, and pull it apart with your hands. You'll feel it come away into natural sections. Each piece wants 3 or 4 leaves and a fistful of roots. Replant immediately and water, because those big leaves lose moisture fast, and a division sitting on the grass for 20 minutes is a division you've already damaged. And one thing worth knowing that costs people money every year. The silver-leaved Brunneras, Jack Frost, Looking Glass, Silver Heart, will not come true from seed. If you let one seed around, what comes up is a plain green Brunnera, and you'll wonder why the silver disappeared. Division is the only way to make more of the plant you actually bought. Quick one while it's on your mind. Which plant in your garden have you been meaning to split for years and keep putting off? Tell me what it is and roughly how long it's been sitting there. I'll bet somebody says a peony. Number 5, Hellebore, divide. This is the most underrated plant in American gardening, and I'll die on that hill. Hellebore flowers in February, sometimes through snow. When there is genuinely nothing else alive in your garden, this thing is putting out cream and plum and green flowers on 18-inch stems, and it does it every year without being asked. September is its moment because Hellebore roots keep growing right through the fall, long after the tops have stopped doing anything. Now, the technique here is different from everything else today, and I want you to actually do this part. Dig the whole clump, then wash the soil off the roots with a hose, properly, until you can see what you're holding. I know that sounds fussy. Do it once and you'll understand a hellebore crown is a dense knot of growth buds and thick roots, and with soil on it you're cutting blind. Washed off, you can see exactly where one section ends and the next begins. Cut so that every division has at least 3 growth buds. Fewer than 3 and you're waiting years for a flower. Replant at the same depth it was growing, not a ½ inch deeper. A hellebore planted too deep sulks and won't flower, and that's the single most common complaint about this plant. Wear gloves, the sap irritates skin on a lot of people. 5 down. Here's the date I promised you. Zones 3 and 4. You're through about the 10th of September. Zone 5, the 20th. Zone 6, early October. Zone 7, mid-October. Zones 8 and 9, October into November. And honestly, fall is the best planting season you get. If you're not sure which one you are, put your state in the comments, the state, not the zone, and I'll tell you. And tell me which of these you're starting with, because whatever comes up most down there is what I go and dig into next. Number 4, Siberian iris, divide. Careful here, because this is not the iris we talked about in August. Bearded iris has a fat rhizome lying on the surface like a sweet potato. Siberian iris is nothing like it. Underground, it's a tight, fibrous, matted ball. People compare it to a coconut, and that's about right because you're not cutting it with a spade. Here's how it fails, and you can see it from the window. After 4 or 5 years, the middle of the clump dies out, and the flowers all come from a ring around the outside, a donut. If yours flowered in a circle this June with a bald patch in the middle, that's the plant asking. Lift the whole thing, and it's heavier than it looks, so get help if the clump is old. Then cut it with a pruning saw or a big knife, not the spade. The spade will bounce off. Cut the dead center out and throw it away. What you want is wedges from the living outside ring, each with at least 3 fans of leaves. Then trim the foliage down to about 6 inches before you replant. That isn't tidiness. A freshly planted division has no anchor, and full-height leaves catch autumn wind and rock the plant loose before it can root. Same depth it was growing. Water it hard. Number 3, Astilbe, divide. Astilbe goes downhill faster than almost anything else in the shade garden, and it does it in a way that looks like a watering problem. Every year the crown pushes a little further up out of the soil. By year 3 or 4, it's sitting proud of the ground with roots half exposed, and the plant starts wilting in July, no matter how much you water, because roots that should be in cool, moist soil are sitting in air. People water more. It doesn't help. The plant needs to go back down, so dig it up. The crown is a woody knot with feeding roots underneath. Cut it into sections with a knife, and make sure every piece has visible growth buds on the top, small pale points, easy to spot once the soil is off. Now the part people get wrong, and I want to be precise because I've heard this stated badly. You are not planting Astilbe deeper than it likes. You're putting the crown back where it should have been all along, right at soil level, buried just enough to be covered. It rose. You're putting it back. Same fix, incidentally, as the plant at number 2. Two different plants, one identical bad habit. Astilbe is thirsty. Water it in properly and mulch it, and it'll give you plumes again next June instead of the leaves-only performance it's been putting on. Number 2, coral bells. Divide. This is the quietest loss in American gardens, and almost nobody catches it happening. Heuchera builds a woody neck. Every year, the crown adds a little more stem underneath the leaves, and the rosette climbs higher above the soil. It happens slowly enough that you never notice until one March you walk out and half of your coral bells are lying on their sides on top of the ground, roots in the air, looking like somebody pulled them up. Nobody pulled them up. That's frost heave. Freeze thaw, and a plant already sitting high gets levered straight out. The fix takes 10 minutes and it's satisfying. Dig the plant. You'll see it immediately, a woody stub at the bottom with almost no roots, and a young leafy rosette on top with the good roots under it. Cut the old woody part off and throw it away. Replant the rosette deep enough that the base of the leaves sits at soil level. That's it. You've just taken 3 years off the plant's age. One caveat I'd rather give you than have you find out. If you're in zone 5 or colder, this needs doing early in September, not late. A coral bells division heading into winter with young roots is exactly what frost heave goes for. In the south, you've got until October. Number 1. Peony, divide. 2 weeks ago, I told you never to put a spade into a peony. I owe you a correction. Never was the safe answer, not the complete one, because September and October are the only months where it can be done properly. And this is that window. Here's what changed. In August, those leaves were still pumping sugars down into the roots, and digging it up was robbery. Now they're yellowing. The work is finished, and there are eyes on the crown, small pink-red buds, next May's stems, already formed. You can finally see where to cut. Cut the foliage off at ground level so you can see the crown, the woody knot at the top of the roots where next year's stems come from. Dig wide, a foot out from the crown, because the roots are thick and go straight down, and a snapped root is a lost division. Wash the soil off, then cut with a sharp knife so every piece has 3 to 5 eyes and its own fat roots. Fewer than 3, and you'll wait years for a flower. Now, the most important number in this entire video, and it's the answer to almost every message I get saying, I've had a peony for 7 years and never had a single flower. Set it so the eyes are 1 to 2 inches below the surface. In zones 2 to 4, closer to 2. Zones 5 and 6, about 1. In the south, ½ an inch. Any deeper and you get a healthy green plant that never blooms for a decade, sometimes forever. And don't do it for no reason. A peony doesn't need dividing. You divide to move it, to make more, or to rescue a very old clump. Otherwise, leave it be. It'll outlive you. Now everything reverses. That's your 9. Every one of them, done in the next 3 weeks, pays you back with a better plant next year and free divisions for anyone who wants them. Now the switch, and this half, is where the money is, because it's a lot easier to save a plant than to grow a new one. The next 6 are the opposite of everything you just heard. Most of them are the best-looking things in your garden right now, and that's exactly the problem. A plant in flower is spending everything on the flower. There's nothing left in the account to make roots with, so a September division costs you twice. You take the display away from yourself this autumn, and the piece you dug goes into winter with cut roots and no time to replace them. 6 plants, and the last one on this list is the one I told you about at the start. Same spade, same afternoon, opposite result. Number 6, garden chrysanthemum, hands off. September is the month half of America buys a mum, so let's do 2 things at once here. First, the division answer. Don't. Mums divide in spring, when the new shoots are 1 inch or 2 tall. A mum divided now goes into winter with an unfinished root system, and winter losses on fall-divided mums are meaningfully higher. It also pushes back flower bud formation, so you'd be paying twice. Second, and this one saves people more money, the mums stacked outside the grocery store right now are being sold as decoration, not as perennials. They've been grown hard and fast to flower on a schedule. They're root-bound in the pot, and they have no time left to root into your soil before the ground goes cold. Most of them will not come back. If you want a mum that returns, that's a different purchase and a different month. A hardy garden mum, bought and planted in spring, given a whole season to build roots, then mulched. The porch mum is a bunch of flowers that happens to be in a pot. Treat it that way and you won't be disappointed in April. Number 5. Aster. Hands off. Look out the window. Whatever is purple and covered in bees right now is probably this. Asters are the last real meal of the year for pollinators. They're flowering in September and October when almost everything else is finished. Digging one up this month cost you the display and cost them the food. And you'd be doing it at the exact moment the plant has the least to give. They do need dividing. Asters flop open from the middle by year 3 and get bare in the center, and the fix is exactly what you'd think. But the month is spring, as new growth appears, and when you do it, you can be ruthless. Chop the clump into quarters, throw the middle out, replant the outside. They're vigorous, and they'll thank you for it. If yours is falling open right now and it bothers you, don't dig it. Put 3 stakes around it and a loop of twine, and take the whole plant apart in April. One thing you can do this month, leave the stem standing when it finishes. The seed heads feed goldfinches through the winter, and the hollow stems are where a lot of native bees overwinter. Cut them in March. Subscribe if you'd rather not guess at this again next spring. New one every couple of days, and the spring version of this list, what comes apart in April and what absolutely doesn't, is the one I'd want you to have. 5 left. And number 1 is the one where getting it wrong doesn't cost you a season. Number 4, hardy hibiscus. Hands off the dinner plate one. Rose mallow. Flowers the size of a salad plate in reds and pinks, and it's been sold hard for the last 10 years, so a lot of you have one. 2 reasons this is a spring job, and they compound. First, it's still working. Hardy hibiscus is one of the last perennials in an American garden to finish. It's often still throwing flowers in September, and behind them, it's building next year's crown. Dig it now, and you interrupt that at the worst possible moment. Second, and this is the one that catches people, hardy hibiscus is astonishingly slow to wake up. It routinely shows nothing until late May, weeks after everything around it has leafed out. So, if a fall division fails, you won't know in April. You'll spend 6 weeks telling yourself it's just slow, and by the time you accept it's dead, the planting season is gone. So, divide it in spring, once you can see the shoots, and that's also when you should be marking where it lives, because it's the same disappearing act as the bleeding heart at number 7, just at the other end of the year. Right now, leave it alone entirely. Don't even cut it back until the stems are properly dead. Number 3, Japanese anemone. Hands off. If something in your garden is holding pink or white saucer flowers on tall, wiry stems right now, this is it, and it is one of the best things in a September border. It's also the one plant here where the sources don't hedge. Divided late in the season, Japanese anemone rarely survives. The reason is underground. It doesn't grow from a solid crown. It travels on thin, brittle runners just under the surface, and they snap at the lightest touch of a spade. Every fragment either rots over winter or comes up next spring 3 feet from where you wanted it, which is the joke of this plant. It spreads perfectly well on its own and refuses to be moved on purpose. So, if you want more, you don't divide it. You wait until spring, find one of the young shoots coming up at the edge of the colony, and slice that off with a spade, a single piece, with the soil still around it. That works. Taking the parent apart does not. And if you don't want more of it, this is your warning. It's a traveler. Give it a spot where that's fine. Number 2, red-hot poker. Hands off. Kniphofia. The orange and yellow torches on bare stems that look like something that shouldn't survive an American winter, and mostly does if you leave it alone. The problem isn't cold, it's wet. A red-hot poker grows from a thick, fleshy crown, and that crown sits in a funnel of arching leaves that collects water like a bowl. Divide it in September and you've open cut surfaces on that crown right before the wettest, coldest 6 months of the year. What kills it isn't frost, it's rot, from the middle out, and you find a soft brown mush where the plant was. Divide in spring, once growth is moving and the plant can heal a wound in days rather than months. And here's the thing you should do this month, which is worth the section on its own. Take the leaves, gather them up into a bundle over the crown, and tie them loosely with twine, like putting the plant's hair up. That sheds the winter rain off the sides instead of funneling it straight down into the crown. 2 minutes a plant. In a wet winter, it's the difference between a poker that comes back and one that doesn't. Number 1. Ornamental grasses, hands off. Here's the one I promised you. Miscanthus, switchgrass, fountain grass, the big warm season grasses. Divide one now and you don't lose a season of flowers. You lose the peace. Nothing comes up in spring and you spend until June assuming it's just late. These only make roots in warm soil, and they stop earlier than perennials do. A September division goes into winter with cut roots and no time to grow new ones, then sits in cold, wet ground for 5 months. Divide in spring, when the green spikes show at the base. Then you can go at it with a saw and barely hurt it. One exception, because people lump all grasses together. Cool season grasses are the opposite. Carl Forster, blue fescue, blue oatgrass. Those divide fine now, as long as you water them. Leave the big ones standing all winter. They hold snow. They give you something to look at in February, and you cut them in March. Screenshot this one. Spade in, Solomon seal, Bergenia, bleeding heart, Brunnera and lungwort, Hellebore, Siberian iris, Astilbe, coral bells, and the peony. Hands in your pockets. Chrysanthemum, Aster, hardy hibiscus, Japanese anemone, red-hot poker, and every big ornamental grass you own. If you do one thing this month, do the peony, and set the eyes an inch or two down, not 4. That one measurement is the whole difference.